I didn't realize I was being set up until the mansion keys felt heavier than handcuffs. I'm saying this now as an old woman, hands spotted with age, voice steady in a way it wasn't back then, but when I was 26, standing in front of that gated house with marble lions out front, I still thought kindness could protect me. I still believed family meant safety. My husband had already left for Singapore. Big corporate job, big promises, big absence. Just stay with Mom for a while, he said over FaceTime. She's lonely, and the place is huge. You'll be more comfortable there. That should have been my first red flag. Nothing in my life had ever been comfortable around that woman. Still, I went. Nurse scrubs folded neatly in my suitcase. Student loans on my back. Love for my husband doing most of the thinking for me. The mansion didn't feel like a home. It felt like a museum where I wasn't allowed to touch anything. Crystal chandeliers, white couches no one actually sat on. A silence so thick it rang in my ears. My mother-in-law hugged me the way people hug strangers at funerals. Tight, cold, performative. Good, she said, scanning me head to toe. You're thinner than I expected. That was the welcome. The first week was normal enough. Or at least, what I thought was normal. I helped out a little. Checked her blood pressure once. Organised her meds because, hey, I'm a nurse, it's muscle memory. She praised me loudly in front of neighbours. My daughter-in-law is a nurse, she'd say. An angel. Angels I'd learn. Don't get paid. By week 2, I wasn't helping anymore. I was assigned. Wake up early, her arthritis. Midday, her sister's insulin. Evening, her friend's wound dressing. Nights, her migraines. All unpaid. All expected. All framed as family duty. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself this is what good wives do. I told myself a lot of lies back then. Then she asked for my salary. Not demanded. Asked. Smiling. Since you're staying here, it only makes sense, she said, pouring tea like we were in some etiquette class. Family expenses, utilities, groceries, we'll manage it together. I handed over my paycheck like an idiot. I didn't even ask questions. Nurses are trained to trust systems, to follow protocols, to believe authority. That night, I tried logging into my bank account. Access denied. I laughed at first, thought it was a glitch, reset the password, still nothing. The next morning, I asked her. Oh, she said casually, buttering toast. I moved things around. Less stress for you. Less stress. That phrase would haunt me for years. That's when the neighbours started acting strange. Whispering, watching, smiling too politely. One woman asked me if I was feeling better these days. Better from what? I didn't know it yet, but my reputation was already being rewritten. My independence slowly erased. My name being used in places I'd never stepped foot in. And the scariest part? I still believed I was safe right up until the hospital called and asked why my nursing license number was attached to a case I'd never seen. That's when I understood. I wasn't living in a mansion. I was living inside a trap. And the worst part wasn't that they were using me, it was that I was about to realize how long they'd been planning it. By the end of the first month, I stopped being a guest and started being inventory. I didn't notice the shift right away. That's the thing about control, it never kicks the door in. It tiptoes. It rearranges the furniture while you're asleep and waits to see if you complain. I was still telling myself I was lucky. A roof over my head. No rent. A mansion, for God's sake. Back then, I thought gratitude was a survival skill. Every morning started the same. Her voice, sharp as a timer going off. Blood pressure. Now, no good morning. No when you're ready, just orders. At first, it was just her. Then her sister started dropping by. Then a cousin. Then a neighbour who didn't trust doctors. Suddenly, I was running a free clinic out of a house that looked like it belonged in a luxury magazine. I kept track in my head. 6 blood pressure checks a day, 3 insulin injections, 2 wound cleanings, 0 pay. I'd come home from my actual nursing shift 12 hours on my feet, hospital air stuck in my lungs, and there she'd be, sitting in her leather chair, like a queen waiting for tribute. "You're late," she'd say, glancing at the clock. "I worked overtime," I'd answer. She'd smile. "Family comes first." That line became her favorite weapon. Then came the rules. No shoes past the foyer. No phone calls after 9 p.m. No locking the guest room door, my door, because we don't hide things in this family. The guest room disappeared without a conversation. One afternoon, I came back and my suitcase was gone, clothes folded into boxes, my things relocated to a small room near the laundry area. "It's more practical," she said. "Closer to where you're needed. Closer to where I was useful." That night, I tried calling my husband. Straight to voicemail. Again and again. He was always busy lately. Meetings, flights, time zones, or at least, that's what I was told. I started noticing my phone acting weird, messages not sending, emails disappearing. Once, I typed out a long text explaining everything, how overwhelmed I was, how trapped I felt, and when I went back to check, it was gone. Deleted. I asked her about it, casually. "You worry too much," she said. "That's your problem." That word problem started following my name. Neighbors stopped making eye contact. One woman asked if I was doing better with my moods. Another suggested meditation. Someone left a pamphlet about anxiety on the kitchen counter. I hadn't cried. I hadn't screamed. I hadn't done anything dramatic. But the story about me was already written. And the money that got tighter. She gave me cash for groceries. Exact amounts. Receipts required. If I spent $2 extra, she noticed. "Where did this go?" "Toilet paper," I said once. She laughed. "You go through things fast." I began skipping meals without realizing it. Too tired to argue. Too tired to explain myself. Then one night, I overheard her on the phone. "She's unstable," she whispered. "But useful. For now." For now. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about help. This wasn't about family. This was about control. Slow, quiet, airtight. And I still didn't know the worst part. Because while she was watching my every move inside that house, someone was using my name and my license far beyond those walls. I thought losing my freedom was the danger, until I learned my identity was already being used somewhere I'd never been. I didn't know it yet. But by the time I hit the 2nd month, my life had become a house of mirrors. Every reflection lied. Every corner whispered someone else's version of me. It started small. A letter slipped under my door. Important medical notice. Urgent. I opened it. My name. My license number. But I hadn't filed anything. I hadn't signed anything. Panic didn't hit immediately. I thought maybe it was a clerical error. Hospitals make mistakes all the time, right? But then the emails came. Outstanding balances, patient complaints, legal action. And suddenly, my stomach dropped into my chest. Each one used my credentials, my license, my identity. I wasn't just trapped in her house anymore, I was trapped in someone else's story. I tried calling my hospital, my voice trembling. I think someone's using my license." The nurse on the other end paused. "Do you mean fraud?" "Yes, fraud. But how?" "We'll investigate," she said. "But you need proof." Proof. I had none. My in-laws controlled my home, my phone, and even my schedule. I had no access to my personal files, no receipts, no messages. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life. I started keeping a journal, writing down everything, every interaction, every shift at the house, every weird phone glitch. I didn't trust my words to anyone yet. And then came the moment that shattered what little trust I had left. I walked into the kitchen and found her standing over my laptop. "My laptop. You shouldn't leave this lying around," she said, closing the lid with a smirk. I froze. My personal emails, my banking info, everything at her fingertips. I realized she didn't just want me trapped. She wanted my identity, my career, my future. I couldn't believe I hadn't seen it sooner. Every small step moving my room, controlling my phone, monitoring my shifts, was building toward this. And then it got worse. A neighbor, someone I thought was friendly, came over with a concerned look. "Emily, people are talking about the hospital complaint," she whispered. "What complaint?" I asked, heart hammering. "Patient said you were reckless, careless. They think you're unstable," she said. I had no voice. I couldn't even defend myself. Every shred of credibility I had in my career was being shredded while I was confined inside a mansion. I felt the walls closing in, the air thinning. This wasn't just abuse. This was a full-blown identity assault. That night, I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing the nightmare had two layers. One, the visible control, manipulation, isolation. Two, the invisible fraud, defamation, someone building a legal trap around my life. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. I discovered a bank statement. My name, my license. Transfers I didn't authorize. Tens of thousands of dollars. Someone was laundering money under my identity. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't call the cops. My phone might be monitored. My husband? Still too busy overseas. My own house had become a cage. And in that cage, I realized the true horror. They didn't just want my labor. They wanted my life. I thought the house had me trapped, but the real danger was out there, using my name to ruin everything I had worked for. I started noticing it that Tuesday morning. The mail was piling up bills, letters, packages, and none of it was addressed to me anymore. Every single bank statement, every envelope, somehow routed straight to her. My paycheck, my bonuses, even reimbursement checks from the hospital vanished before I could touch them. It wasn't just control anymore. It was theft, and I couldn't believe how sneaky she had become. She'd mastered the act of appearing helpful while stripping me of every ounce of independence. At breakfast, she'd smile, pour my coffee, pat my shoulder, and suddenly I'd realize my phone battery was dead, my emails gone, my contacts removed. "You need a break, sweetie," she'd say. "Let me handle it." That handling it meant she was quietly erasing my existence. The guests in the mansion became instruments of isolation. Every neighbor, every friend my husband knew, started hearing little lies. "She's forgetful, anxious, a little unstable." And me, being the polite person I always was, I laughed along nervously, pretending I didn't hear it. But deep down, I was panicking. I was trapped in this gilded cage where my every move was monitored, judged, and twisted. Then came the subtle threats. Notes left on my nightstand. "Remember, everything here is for the family. Don't forget your place." Phone calls that disconnected mid-conversation, emails that bounced back. It was psychological torture disguised as kindness. And the worst part? I still had to smile, still had to cook, clean, and nurse everyone back to health like I was some unpaid shadow of a nurse. I tried talking to my husband over video calls, but every time he was too busy, in meetings, or traveling unexpectedly. My isolation wasn't just physical, it was total. I realized then that the mansion itself was a weapon. The hallways, the guest rooms, even the cameras she'd installed in the kitchen, they weren't about security. They were about control. One afternoon, while folding laundry in the guest suite, I discovered a stack of papers tucked behind a drawer. At first glance, they looked harmless medical logs, invoices, but when I flipped through them, my heart froze. My name, my license, hospital codes, all forged. She had been running phantom procedures, billing insurance, and leaving me to take the fall if anyone asked questions. I sat there, knees shaking, staring at the neat little handwriting. That's when it hit me. Everything she'd built, the smiles, the helpful gestures, the carefully crafted innocence, was a trap. And I'd been walking right into it. But I didn't panic. I couldn't. I was already thinking 10 steps ahead, piecing together her plan. She thought she had me, but she hadn't counted on one thing. That's when I realized the first step to turning this nightmare around wasn't anger, it was patience. And I was about to start gathering proof she'd never see coming. I knew I had to be smart. Angry, yelling, wouldn't fix anything, and calling my husband. Forget it, she had already conditioned him to think I was overreacting. No, this had to be quiet, precise, like chess. Every move planned, every step calculated. I was about to play a game she didn't even know I understood. First, I started small. Every bill that came in, I photographed it. Every paycheck, every medical invoice, every transaction she tried to slip past me, I documented it. I even started secretly recording conversations when she was helping me with paperwork. I wasn't just gathering proof, I was building a map of her manipulation, line by line, dollar by dollar. I reviewed each record at night, cross-referencing dates, amounts, signatures, anything that could betray her careful lies. Then came the risky part, accessing my old hospital records. She had deleted my emails, blocked my login, and claimed the hospital office couldn't confirm anything. But I knew a few tricks from my years as a nurse. Using my license credentials, I quietly logged into the system from a public terminal, double-checking every procedure she'd faked. Every forged patient record was there, time-stamped, labelled, and clearly falsified. My stomach churned. She had nearly ruined me, and I felt this strange mix of fear and righteous anger building inside. But I couldn't show my panic. Every time she came around, smiling, offering advice or coffee, I had to act like nothing was happening. I laughed when she joked about my stress, nodded when she told me I was too sensitive, and all the while, I was storing evidence on my phone and hidden USB drives. Every little slip she made, incorrect invoice, wrong signature, duplicate patient ID, was gold. She was sloppy because she assumed I was clueless, and that overconfidence was my advantage. I also started quietly tracking her financial moves. The luxury cars, the new jewelry, the trips she claimed were family investments, all funded with my wages, my reimbursements, money she'd funneled through shell accounts she thought I'd never find. The more I dug, the more audacious her scheme appeared. She thought she was untouchable, but she had left a trail straight to her own undoing. Each piece of paper, each screenshot, was a breadcrumb leading back to her lies. And just when I thought I was alone in this fight, my father called. He'd sensed something was off during a visit months ago and had been quietly checking on me. He didn't yell, didn't lecture. He just said, "Show me everything, and don't let them see you panic. We'll fix this carefully." Hearing his calm, controlled voice was like a lifeline. Suddenly, I wasn't trapped anymore. I had backup. A strategist. Someone who could turn my collection of photos, recordings, and bank statements into a weapon. By the end of that week, I had enough proof to start confronting the lies systematically, but I knew I couldn't strike yet. Timing was everything. A single mistake, and she would vanish the evidence, rewrite records, and make me look insane again. I had to wait for the perfect moment. Every day, I felt a shift. I walked around the mansion with a quiet confidence she couldn't sense. I answered her fake smiles with polite nods, but inside, I was plotting every move. She thought she controlled me, but I was running the clock now. Patience was my weapon, and she had no idea. And that's when I realized the moment to strike wasn't tomorrow, wasn't next week, it was coming sooner than she ever imagined. Because patience, it turns out, was the deadliest weapon she never saw coming. The day finally came. I'd spent months quietly gathering proof, documenting every forged bill, every fake patient record, every dollar she had siphoned from my paycheck. I had my father in my corner, my evidence organized, and a plan that would expose her completely. But even standing there, ready to act, I felt a knot in my stomach. After everything, confronting her publicly wasn't just about justice, it was about reclaiming my life. We set it up carefully. My father coordinated with a lawyer, who in turn looped in hospital officials, and a detective. We arranged a meeting at the hospital's administrative office under the guise of routine audit follow-up. She didn't suspect a thing. She walked in, all confidence, heels clicking on the tile, carrying that same smug smile she'd worn for months, thinking she had already won. I stayed calm, polite, nodding, smiling, pretending to be the compliant daughter-in-law she'd always wanted. But inside, my heartbeat was a drum roll. The lawyer began presenting our findings item by item, transaction by transaction. My forged hospital records were laid bare. The bills she'd altered, the patient IDs she'd duplicated, even the financial trail of my stolen wages all traced back to her. She froze. Her perfect composure cracked for the first time. I saw it in her eyes. Panic. I'd expected anger, screaming, even tears, but nothing prepared me for the cold, sharp fear that finally replaced her arrogance. The detective asked questions, the lawyer produced receipts, and the hospital officials confirmed everything. My evidence was airtight, undeniable. Every witness, every official, every document corroborated my story. And then my father spoke, calm, controlled, quietly, terrifying. He didn't yell, didn't call her names. He simply outlined her manipulations, her schemes, her deception in front of everyone. He dismantled her social power, piece by piece. He was methodical, logical, and merciless, without raising his voice. That calm authority made everyone in the room, especially her, realize the extent of what she'd done. I felt something shift in me at that moment. Relief, yes, but more than that, a reclaiming of dignity. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like myself again. She tried to stammer, to make excuses, to point fingers, but no one believed her. Every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to gaslight me had been catalogued and exposed. She had lost. Completely. Walking out of that room, I realized the quietest victories are the strongest. I didn't scream. I didn't gloat. I didn't even need my husband to understand fully what happened. I had won in the way that mattered legally, morally, intellectually. I had proved my innocence, reclaimed my money, and exposed the person who had tried to destroy me. Months later, I moved into my own place. My father still checks in, quietly ensuring I'm safe. My husband, once distant, finally began to understand what had really happened. And me, I returned to nursing with a renewed sense of confidence, carrying the knowledge that I could survive manipulation, deceit, and betrayal, and come out stronger. I often think back to those months in the mansion. The humiliation, the isolation, the feeling of being trapped, it's a part of me now, but it's not all of me. I learned patience, strategy, and the power of calm action. And most importantly, I learned that no one, not even someone who pretends to love you, can take your dignity if you refuse to surrender it. So, if you're ever trapped, underestimated, or erased, remember this. The quiet ones, the ones who watch, record, and wait, they are the ones who come back stronger. And sometimes, Justice doesn't roar, it walks in silently, flipping the tables without anyone hearing it coming.